Hey there YouTube, welcome on back to Artichoke Dip. My name is Rob, solo tabletop gamer. And you know, for a while my channel kind of went dark, didn't do a whole lot with it. I have to admit, 23 was a pretty rough year for me. Went through a lot of crap, you know, like I think a lot of people did. But you know, they say whatever doesn't kill you only makes you stronger. There's a lot of truth to that. And it gave me time to reflect. It gave me time to really think about kind of where I wanted to head, what direction, with the channel, and many other things in my life. So it was kind of a clarification point for me, if you will. And I decided, you know, rather than making video after video talking about RPGs and just the solitaire end of RPGs, you know, why don't I talk, if there's so many different facets of the hobby that I really do enjoy, why don't I talk about some of those for a while? So I decided in this video we're going to switch things up a little bit. I'm going to talk about terrain. We're going to go over some basics. Some things you may not know, maybe some things you do know, maybe some things you wondered about and often wondered, how do I do that? And well, we're always kind of scared. Well, let's smash some of those preconceived notions, mysteries, whatever have you, and let's get into this video. Before I do, don't forget to click the like button. This helps bring more gaming content your way. And if you just stumbled across my channel, you just found me, that's great. Welcome on in. Don't forget to click the subscribe, followed by the bell icon. When I upload a video, you'll get a notification so you don't miss one. So, you know, I have been collecting terrain for a while, painting it. I've had terrain build up. For a while I was so focused on reviewing books and games and stuff like that, and getting overloaded with games and rule sets, and trying to play a game so I could do a review on it, that the other end of the hobby that I really enjoyed suffered greatly. And as I got more hobbies, as I got more miniatures and terrain, they just built up. They weren't getting painted, and you know, I really had to reconnect with that. I was like, this is ludicrous. We got to do something with this. And I really do. I enjoy getting a model, and let me adjust this light so it's not, there we go, and painting it, making it my own, making it look great for a game board. And I think for a lot of people out there, they think you have to be an artist, you have to be you know, born with this innate talent to be able to do these. This is false. It's so false that we're gonna smash some of those preconceived notions and get down to the base root and really really take a look at just how simple it is and some things you can use to be able to do that. Now, first and foremost, the thing I'm going to tell you about this when it comes to this, and I got some unpainted terrain pieces over here I want to go through that I'm going to add into my collection. This one is really cool. I just recently got this one. I loved it. Been looking at it for a while, and I said, you know what? I really would enjoy to paint that, and I would really, well, would like to have that on the game board when I play my minis games, because I mean, that's really cool. A ruined, burned out, decrepit area. The other one I got was, and a lot of the terrain I get is through a company called Ender Toys, is what they call themselves. They make stuff for Minecraft. They make all kinds of stuff, but they also focus on tabletop terrain for gaming, whether it be, you know, RPGs like D&D or Pathfinder, to name a few, or you're into Warhammer or what have you. Though they make very affordable, in my opinion, decent terrain. I mean, here's another one, and I had picked up one of their value boxes. So for about $40 you get pretty decent sized box. It was, you know, pretty decent size. Matter of fact, I still have the box right over here. You know, it comes in a box about that size, and then it's loaded to the tippy top of terrain. And some of it I have already painted and put out there. Get a piece to show you. I have one I thought was really cool. Huh. Where did I move it? Oh, it's right in front of me. Sorry about that. So a couple of pieces I have already painted, like they have their own 3D dungeon terrain to compete with Warlock. If you're not familiar with that, Warlock tiles I have, and they're not bad. And you know, so one of these came in the box, painted it up. It's pretty easy, didn't take me too long. It had a really cool rock, I call it, looks like a rock pile. It could be used as a monolith. Recently I played a game of I took a break from Bardsong and played a game of 4 Against Darkness, and my characters, one of the sites that they visited before they hit their destination was a monolith area. This came in the box that I was showing you, and I had painted that up. Very simple. I mean, there's not really much to this to make this look this way. It's actually pretty simple. I'm going to cover some of them techniques. And then the other thing I thought was kind of unique was this circular, looks like supposed to be old wooden, maybe a hut or a building at one time that has been demolished. Either way, this would be really good for any type of miniature skirmish game to put on the board. And two, this is, you know, didn't take long to do this. So this is what I want to explain. This is what I wanted to get into. I've kind of always wanted to do these videos and get into this and talk about terrain and painting and that side of the hobby that I really enjoy. But I was always kind of wondering, how would people out there take it? But I'll tell you what, you know, I realized, well, wait a minute, I make the videos, I edit them, I upload them, I do this in my spare time when I get time, so what the hell, why not? So let's jump on into it. Let's get to the table, and I'm going to show you how I get through this pretty quick and how I do that. And the first thing we're going to cover is the base coat. And something you got to realize when you work with any type of acrylic paint is that you need a really good primer coat for it. If you do not use a primer coat, what can wind up happening is the paint that you do put on it can have the potential to crack and ruin your paint job, which means, well, you're going to have to strip it and start all over again, and all that time you put into it was for nothing. You don't want that. So let's get to the game table and let's see what I got set up, and I'm going to show you how I do this, and I'm going to talk about some do's and don'ts when we do this. So let's get to that. Okay, so I got my terrain pieces here. Got a piece of cardboard down, obviously. I mean, even though I got plastic here, so nothing will get on this table covering. You know, you should always do your best to protect whatever surface that you are currently working on. I think that goes without saying. That's I think what they call a given. Now, besides the obvious, what we're going to need a basic assortment of brushes, some clean water when you're working with acrylics to be able to wash your brushes out when you do change color. I'm going to be using an airbrush to actually put the base coat on everything. And not the base coat, I'm sorry, the primer coat is what I meant to say. And I got some of these smaller assortments as well, and I'm going to see how, you know, these first 4 pieces go, then I'm going to move on from there. If I get time, everything goes smoothly, I'm going to use this. Now, this is not an airbrush tutorial, but I'll just let you, give you some pointers about an airbrush. I think a lot of people think an airbrush is an extremely highly overcomplicated process. It's really not. As a matter of fact, an airbrush is a very simplistic tool to actually get the hang of. A lot of people get frustrated over paint consistency, and there's two things I can say that will make your life really easy when it comes to it, and that is using actual airbrush paint and using an airbrush reducer and extender base, which is this right here, which I use. But this can also be used to help dilute down normal craft paints that are acrylic into a very usable mixture that you can run through your airbrush, and I've had really good luck with it. And I'm going to show you the brand name. Now, there's a lot of different brands out there. Folk Art's one of them. I really don't recommend using it. I know some people have used it, and I have seen videos where people have had really good luck with it. I never have. The one brand I can tell you I've had really good luck with using that, and it's pretty much my go-to, is this right here, Apple Barrel. And I go through a lot of Apple Barrel paint. As a matter of fact, that's why I buy it by these big jugs like this, just for a primer. Black is my primary primer coat. Now, depending on what you're painting, let's talk about that first. Let's get that out of the way. So these are going to be natural type of terrain pieces, so I'm going to want a lot of shadowing. So I'm going to want to use black as my primer coat, because those are going to work the best for this, especially the shadowing in here. When it comes to painting miniatures like this, typically I stay away from black and I will go to a gray. I will actually mix up gray paint, and that will be my primer coat that I'll put on there, and then I will put my base coat on it. The reason why, the darker the primer coat, the more coats it's going to take to get that paint to the, I'm going to use the brightness, I'm going to say. Some people call it the pigments, you can call it whatever you want. I'm going to say, how well do you really want that color to look as brilliant as you want it? So if you want the colors to look a little bit darker, use a black. If you want them to look a little bit brighter, use a gray paint. And as a matter of fact, you can use any paint color you want as a primer. It doesn't matter, because you're going to be covering it anyways. But typically what I do, like with my mini, what I would do with this is I would paint it all gray, everything, allow it to dry. I would come back with the green, and I would hit everything with this green. Everything would get a base coat in that green, and then I would go back over and start hitting all my different colors that I'm going to do, the bow and everything else, and it really does help flow everything together. But that's for a different video. Video we're talking about is for these terrain pieces here, and let's get into them terrain pieces. Alright, so I have picked these up, and if you're into the medical profession, you probably recognize these. This is what a nurse will bring you with your medication in it. They're very cheap. I can get a box of like 1,000 of these for under 20 bucks. And the nice thing is they're disposable. After you're done with them, mixing up your paint, changing colors, whatever you're going to do with them, you just toss them and grab a clean one, and you don't have to worry about cleaning out a container that you're using. So, but enough of that. Let's get into mixing the base. First thing you want to do with any paint when you open it up and you look at it, if you start to get what looks like clumped together paint, it's coming out and it almost looks like you're pulling a snot out of your paint, you're going to see a long stringy dried up section of the paint. you're not going to want to use that. Brush application, yeah, you can, and I have, and I don't really have much of a problem. But when it comes to airbrushing, if you see that in your paint, do not use that. What that's going to do is it's going to clog up your airbrush, and it's going to cause you a lot of problems if you do use an airbrush. If you're using just straight brush, yeah, it's not going to matter. But let's pour that in there. So typically what I have found, now believe it or not, that amount of paint that I have right there, I'll hold that up and show you, is going to be more than enough to actually prime all of these. As a matter of fact, I'll probably be pouring some out, or I could just prime the rest of the pieces right now and allow them all to dry. We'll see. And of course, don't forget, when you pour paint like that, you're going to get it on the bottle. You're going to get it on your hands. You're going to get it everywhere. It's just part of the hobby. Alright. Now, when it comes to this paint, I have found the best way to do this is however much you add roughly 25% of this to what you have in this and mix it up, and the consistency should be pretty good. Give it a good shake first. Put it up there. I'm going to measure this out, take a look at it off camera because it'll be way easier. So as you can see, how it's floating on the top right now currently, but I got about 25% of that. I'm going to say that is the fluid reducer. Now I'm going to take a brush and mix this up real thoroughly, mix it all in, and this can get a little messy, so if you may want to get your models out of the way when you do this. Now, I test the consistency of the paint, and this is going to have to be mixed up quite a bit more because I just don't want this spilling out. So I'm going to pour some into here. There we go. Where I can really give it a good mixing. And then I test it on the side. And if it runs pretty easy down the side of the cup, I know that that's ready to go into my airbrush, and I can start my primer coat. I'm going to get this mixed up really good. And that seems to be flowing pretty good. Alright. Now, another thing I'm going to recommend you pick up is get yourself some cheap examining gloves. The reason for this, whether you're handling the airbrush or when you're painting, you can hold the piece and you're not going to have to worry about painting your hand too much and going and scrubbing it off later. The nice thing about acrylic paints is it is easy water soap cleanup. It's not like working with an oil paint to where it's going to take a whole lot more to get that stuff off. But let's test it out, see if the consistency. Alright, we'll start with this and see how quickly we can color this. Thing I like about the airbrush with doing a primer coat is you can really get into the really finer details of everything without worrying about having to really sit there and glob the paint on with a paintbrush. where it, well, if you get too much there, not only does it take longer for everything to dry, but it also takes away from some of the detail, particularly if you are really focused on the details and that's something you're really focused on and you really want to bring out in whatever you are currently working on. So it's exactly why I use an airbrush for both my primer and my base coats of whatever I do. And as you can see, my mixture works very well. So, you know, right there already smashes the rumor of the only paints that you can run through an airbrush are airbrush specific paints. Now, you get a decent, as you can see, it's already coming out pretty dang good. It's covering quick. So what I was going to say is, it smashes the rumor already about where you hear you have to use one specific type of paint only, period. Now, you can use tap water to dilute down the paint. I really don't recommend that. Very basic components, very simple to break down and clean. You know, cleanliness is the main thing with an airbrush. You really got to keep on it. As you could see in the beginning of the video, I went to go use it. The airbrush was not responding, and, well, that was my fault. Because, well, I had used a quick color of red to finish up some highlighting, and, yeah, forgot to clean it out thoroughly, and the paint dried in the airbrush. No problem, though. I was able to get it cleaned pretty quickly. And get it all set up for what I wanted to do with it. Primer coat, the easiest part of the paint project to do. Just get it on there. I know I can see it. You might not be able to see it on the camera, but I can really see where the 3D printer, the lines are. And I might want to add some sand. Ugh, my hand's starting to get tired. So one thing about an airbrush, your hand does get tired after a while. But your hand will get tired with brushes too after a while, so it's half a dozen of these or 12 of the other. Just take your pick. So, I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, since I still have paint, a lot of paint left actually, I'm just going to put these smaller mini pieces out here, and let's just utilize all that paint, get this all painted up, and just kill two birds with one stone. You can never have enough barrels, it seems like, to fill in empty corners of your dungeons when you're doing a dungeon crawl, or you have an encounter outside of a tavern or a city encounter or something like that. Barrels always really seem to help fill up them empty gaps and add a lot of I'm gonna say character to your game table. I've noticed that anyways. As well as with crates. Never have enough crates either. Love crates. It's flowing pretty good. Paint's flowing real good tonight. I have zero complaints about the paint. The mixture's perfect. I found with apple barrel paints, you use that with a fluid reducer, they work excellent. Matter of fact, they flow better than a lot of your professional airbrush paints I have found. They dry quick. That's one thing I like about apple barrel paints, is they do dry so fast, which makes them ideal for painting minis, especially if you have a lot of different color detail on a model. And if you're impatient like me, and you just want to get the mini done, you don't want to wait on excessive dry times, works excellent. Okay, so now we're going to get into dry brushing, hence its name, dry brushing. As a matter of fact, I can see that a little bit better now. And as you can see, it doesn't look like much now. It's one solid colored primer, primered black, and it's kind of hard to see stuff. That's going to change though. So I'm going to use my various different colors of gray here. And you have to remember, when it comes to anything you paint, particularly for the effect of shadow, you always want to start with your darker color first and put your lighter colors as you move outward. And that's going to give you a way better effect. So the three different colors I have here I'm going to use is Apple Barrel Elephant Gray, Apple Barrel Country Gray, and then of course, last but not least, Apple Barrel Granite Gray. Now if you look at them, the Granite Gray has just a tint darker than the Country Gray, but the Elephant Gray is definitely the darkest, and that's the one I'm going to start with. Give it a good shake. Put some paint in there, and we're going to go, and with dry brushing, you're going to go through paint pretty quick. This process, unfortunately, there's just no two ways about it. You are going to go through paint kind of quickly. You want to find a wide type of brush that's kind of stiff. You don't want it too soft, otherwise it's not going to work. And of course, dry brush, you want your brush dry, hence the name dry brush. So first and foremost, you want to dip the tip of the brush like that into the paint. Get yourself some paper towel, and I'll see if I can move this up here where you can actually see what I'm doing. Move my model up here a little bit more. You're going to want to actually brush it off, test it on your hand right here. As you can see, you got these wrinkles in your hand right here. Go over it. If you can see them like you can there on my hand, it's ready to go on the model. So let's start with this exterior wall first. And I'm just gonna lightly go over it. And I don't want to fill in any of the detail, the cracks for the shadowing. I'm just going to go over this nice and lightly to give the bricks a layer. As you can see, that's already popping. You can see compared to the other side just how much better that is. Now your dry brushing, you're gonna find, like I said, you're gonna go through a lot of paint with dry brushing, but this is my absolute favorite part of painting projects is right here. The dry brushing is my absolute favorite. And you don't have to be an artist to learn this technique. This is a very simple technique. And we're going to hit them bricks and all that rubble around there. We're going to start over here. Same thing. Now, there is some detail to this model that I do not want to fill in. For instance, here, this is the wood. I know it's hard to see. And then if we look around the windows right here in these recesses, and it'll be more apparent once I get more paint on it, these are wooden frames as well. So I don't want to paint those gray. I'm going to leave those completely black, and then those are going to come back over with a brown, and then we're going to do some different dry brushing techniques on those later to make it look more like weathered wood. But the rest of it, it's fair game. And like I said, just lightly with your brush. You don't want to fill in any of the cracks in between the bricks. You want those to stay the primer color of the black, because that's going to give the appearance of shadowing. And I just hope you can see this pretty well with the lighting in here. I know the lighting in here can stink at times. And I'm going to need some more paint. Nice thing about dry brushing too is it goes quick, because you're putting on such a thin layer. It dries relatively quick, so it's very easy to put a coat on and go back over it and just start really bringing out the detail of everything. Now, some of you may be asking, why do I use the airbrush for this? Well, if I was to use the airbrush for this, it would fill in all those cracks, and then you wouldn't get the natural shadowing like I have here, and it would just ruin everything. So I don't really want to do that. I want to dry brush a really good layer of gray on there. And as you can see, underneath the light, that's starting to really come to light. As a matter of fact, I'm going to adjust this desk lamp so we can get some better light in here. There we go. I think that's going to work better for you guys and me, because I'm going to actually be able to see better. You'd figure with all the lighting I have around here, I would be able to see better right here, but for whatever reason, it's just bizarre. Don't know. Just always, it seems like this end of the room has always just been darker than the rest. Okay, as you can see, this is really starting, and if you think about it, start to finish, primer and everything. If this is just one piece that I was doing, I could probably have this knocked out and completely done, ready for the tabletop in about 2 hours. But I got a lot more pieces to do, so I'm going to be at it a little bit longer than that. And then here, I want to be mindful, this is going to be the wood right here, this is a stone right here, so I'm just going to paint this like so. See if I can get some in there there we go, that'll work. And then as we can see, we got more wood right here, but we got stone here. So right now, I'm really focused on hitting all the stone. Alright, it's really starting to come together nice. Now I'm going to use different layers of paint, different shades, like I said, starting with the darkest and going to the more lighter ones to get the effect that I really want. And then when I'm done with this, I'm probably going to fill in, add some flock to this to look like, you know, it has some natural vegetative growth going on in there. Yeah, now it's starting to look like something rather than just one color primer black. You're starting to see the detail, everything's starting to kind of come to life at this point. And I'm going to hit the tops like so. You want to be mindful of the wooded areas, and then right down in here I can see some stone right there. I'm going to hit that with the gray. Not too much. Just want to highlight that. I don't really want to fill it in all that much because there is wood in there as well. Alright. So that was that color, and clean that off my brush. The next one I'm going to go to, and looking at these, the granite gray appears to be a bit darker than the country gray. I know it might be hard to see in the light. If I bring it up here, you may be able to see what I'm talking about. As you can see, this is a little bit darker by even looking at the bottles than this. So this is going to be the second color I'm going to want to apply, but I'm not going to go completely over it. Oop, I forgot an area. Right here in the very top. Can't believe I missed that part. Alright, that should be enough. I'm going to wipe the excess off here because we're done with that color. Alright. I'm now going to highlight what I just went over with the darker gray color. And I'm going to use 3 different colors of gray on this to give the appearance to weathered stone. I'm going to test that. Perfect. My thumb. And I'm going to start where I started before, really focusing towards the top of the areas and the corners. The chimney as well. And then to just do a couple of random areas there to really just kind of break it up. I don't want to go back over what I already covered. Now when it comes to this area, I'm just going to be very sporadic about it. Same thing down here in these rubble areas. Just kind of put a little bit here, a little bit there. You can already see it starting to really look like weathered stone. Alright, I'm going to reapply some more to my brush. And I'm going to finish up the exterior first. I'm going to go to the interior. like I said, just sporadically hitting these areas to make them really pop. I'm not wanting to cover everything. And as a matter of fact, what you want to do is really focus on the corners. And I'm going to demonstrate that right here with this area. So I want to drag it over the top, really just focusing on the corner of the stairs. And that's about it. That's all I'm going to really want to do there. You don't want to get too carried away with it, because like I said, then what you're going to wind up doing is just recovering everything you've already done. You just want to break it up just enough to really give that appearance of weathered stone. And I think that color should be more than enough of what I'm looking for. And I wish I didn't have such a bright LED light like this. I'm going to try turning it down a little bit so you can see it more. So in this other light, just add a little bit to it. And you can really see how. Now I got one more color gray I'm going to add to this, and then I'm going to start working on the wood part. So the last one I have, we use the granite gray, is right here, the country gray, which is a far lighter. And I'm going to actually use less of this than I did the last gray, because I'm going to really be focusing on the corners, the very tops of the stairs, on the corners, stuff like that, to really bring out the detail in that. So we're going to be even using less than this. And let's see how she works. Alright, so I'm going to want to go on the corners like so, dragging my brush in around these stones. Corner right here I want to focus on. These smaller stones like so, really make those more pronounced, make them pop so they look better. And then sporadically brush here and there on the rubble piles around it, just to break it up. I don't want to over saturate it. And I can focus on the corner of the chimney like so. I'm probably going to apply more. Now I could use just pure white paint on this and go over this. And initially, yeah, it's gonna look nice, but then after a while it will really draw your eye to it, and you will notice it. When I first started doing a lot of terrain painting, that's what I did, and at the time it looked really good, but then after a while you really do notice it. And yeah, the short term it looks good, long term you figure out real fast that it's a lot better if you just blend different color grays to achieve that, and make it look like so. So as you can see, see if I can angle some of these lights down. Almost too bright. But as you can see, compared to where I started, this is where we are now. It actually looks like weathered stone. And as you can see, it didn't take me long to do that. It was pretty damn quick, as a matter of fact. So let's move on to our next color, which is going to, I think I'm going to use a burnt umber on that. So I'm going to use two colors for the wood. I'm going to use a burnt umber, which is apple barrel. And then this always works good for highlighting it. This is Deco Art Honey Brown. But that's going to be to highlight the wood. Now, of course, with this, I can do a quick brush wash of this larger one because I'm going to be done with this large brush. This is really going to serve me no purpose anymore. So I'm going to need a smaller one. I'm going to do much more finer detail. So I'm going to move to this smaller, flatter brush, and this is what I'm going to want to use for my wood, because I'm not going to really need, like I said, a very large brush to cover these wood areas. And the other thing too, which is going to be more apparent, is down in these rubble areas there are also timbers as well, and I'm going to use this smaller, more finer pointed brush to fill those in. Ooh. So let's get started there first. And waiting to do this after I'd done the dry brushing on the rest of the place really does work out nice, because the gray paint is lighter, obviously, than the black primer, and it will really make the brown paint stand out very well, as you can see here. And of course, the challenge is always getting to holding a steady hand and just dragging your brush up. Get lots of paint on it. Use your steady hand, pull your brush up, and don't worry about really doing too many brush strokes, because there's really not going to be too much of a need for that, I shall say. Okay, got those, a little bit right there. Alright, this is really starting to come together nice. But you just need a few basic colors and to really bring it all together. Now, something to remember about mini painting when you go to mini paint you should pick whatever your primary color is. Should cover 60% of your model. Your second color should cover 40% or less, 30% I'll say. Then 10% should be for highlighted areas. What I mean by highlighted areas is areas of your model you really want to insinuate and bring to the forefront. So if you're painting a, obviously a mini, and let's say it has a weapon that you really want to showcase, you really want that to be the center focus of the miniature, then it should be the 10% the highlight paint, because that's what's really going to draw your eye to it, and it's really going to make it stand out. Okay. Now, I think I got all the small timbers in there I need to get. Oh, one right here I forgot about. Like so. I think there might be one on the back side too. Let's take a look. Yep, I got a couple right here, so I'm gonna fill those in real quick. Now obviously this is thicker paint than even the primer coat I put on, so it's going to take a little bit longer for this to dry. But tell you what, apple barrel dries pretty quick, so I'm not really all that worried about it. Now areas like this, of course, I'm going to use this finer brush to get in there and fill them areas in. I don't want to leave that to dry brushing to possibly get on the areas I don't want that paint on. Like there. So I'll have to get that off. There we go. Okay. That's the real, I'm gonna say, I'm just gonna set that aside right now. That's the real detailed stuff, the extent of it, of the model. Everything else is gonna be dry brushing and pretty straightforward. Alright. And as you can see, that's already starting to really take shape. Now when it comes to the underside of the wood, you can do it one of two ways. You can either leave it primer black to leave it shadowed if you want to, and that looks good too. Me, I'm gonna put a base coat on that of my burnt umber. What I'm just not gonna do is do the highlights that I'm going to do later with the honey brown, and then that will give very good appearance of shadowing, as if obviously it's naturally shadowed, to it won't be in the natural light of the sun. See? And this is going to get better. It's going to get better and better as I go along. Right now, this is just the base coat of the wood. We've got a lot more to do on the wood as well. So just like I did the stones, I should say the brickwork of the building, not the stones. I just want to highlight with this. I don't want to cover the whole thing. I just want to go over it. Like so. So let's do the front. And you can see how it's really just making the texture pop and really emphasizing the vertical timbers compared to the horizontal timber work in the background, really giving it the appearance of weathered wood. Now, this area right back here, since I did this last, I'm going to let that dry a little bit more, and I'm going to focus on the roof timbers, what's left, do up there first. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Just hit some of these spots on these other timbers like so. Really make those stand out a little bit more. My brush is a little bit too wet there, so got a little bit more paint on there than I wanted to, but it's not the end of the world. Just one small area. I'm going to focus on these window frames a little bit more, give those a little bit more detail. Now I can focus on this area right here. We'll start with the floor first. Really making it look like weathered wood. The inner walls. Oop. Hence the name, dry brushing, to brush when dry. Let me take a look. I don't really want to overdo it with the honey brown. I just want to break it up to make it look like weathered wood. I think that looks pretty good. I have one area left I got to focus on. I was going to save this for last, and that's the threshold where it looks like it's wood actually instead of stone right here. And do the same there. Kind of blend that all in like so. Yeah, that looks better. Breaks it up as well. So compared to where we first started with the primer, almost tabletop ready. Almost. I think I'm going to put some flocking in here. I'm going to add some flocking in these areas to make it look like a natural mossy or grassy type of growth. So I'm going to use some clear Elmer's PVA glue. I'm sure you'll hear a lot of people say PVA, and they'll be thinking, what's PVA? This is what they're talking about. Now I do take a brush, and I'm going to take a smaller one like so, as you can see, like that. And I want to focus on just putting in random areas. Like, so maybe I'm going to put some up here across the top of the fireplace, maybe a little bit here in the corner, a little bit here to make it look like appearance that there's growing. I'm going to want to probably put some sporadic around here as well, so it's going to be a little bit, but I really want to focus a lot right here where this flat area is. So let's start there first. So I could just goop this stuff right onto the model and just start slashing paint, I mean not paint, but glue around if I wanted to, but I prefer not to do that. I want a more controlled area. So I'm going to apply my paint with a brush, put some there, put some up over here. Like I said, I'm going to put some over here on that side of the fireplace. So them areas, now the brighter light is going to make this much easier for me to see, because I'm going to see the reflection of the glue a lot better. Can't forget that little area up there by the fireplace, so I can always tilt this backwards like this. And I don't want to really overdo it, I just want a little bit there. Perfect. So I have some there, and I want to highlight some of the areas with the growth. So I think I forgot to paint that area right there with the wood. And you know what, since I'm already done with the highlighting and I want to put some growth there anyways, keep calling it growth, I want to put some moss, whatever. I'm going to come back and dry brush that off a little bit later once this dries. This is going to sit and dry overnight, and I'm just going to let it do its thing and then come back with the dry brush and just clean it up. And I think I'm going to look for the areas where there's not a whole lot of detail. This is a really good area right here. There's not a whole lot of detail with the bricks. It's kind of boring, actually. That'd be a good area to fill it in with. Put some in there. Let's look around the back. You can see an area right here. Same thing. Kind of not a whole lot going on right there. And then, you know what? I'm going to drag it over here in front of the stick, too. That'll let the stick, the fallen timber. The stick. Let that sit like so. And I got another point right here where I can see not a whole lot of detail. I'm gonna fill that in there. It's gonna break it up just enough to really highlight it without overdoing it with the static grass. But it's going to be enough to where it's going to break it up enough, add some color into it, and really make it interesting. Now, I think I'm going to put some where else can I put some? And there's so many possibilities I could do with this area. Oh, I know. What about in the fireplace itself? Right? This place is abandoned. Looks like it's been burned out. We'll put some in here. Oops, sorry about that. And then this one right down here would be another good spot for it. And then I can always maybe put some, I think I'll put some around here too as well. This glue is starting to dry out, so I gotta be pretty quick about this. Alright, there we have it. I'm gonna let this dry thoroughly, dry brush it, and we'll see how it turns out after that. But so far what I'm seeing, I'm really liking. Alright, my friends, hope you enjoyed the video, and here it is. It's matter of fact, the glue dried a lot quicker than I anticipated, and I was able to get the flocking dry brushed. And basically what that is you want to knock any of the loose stuff off of it, so you get better, finer detail exactly where you wanted to glue your flocking at. And as you can see, it turned out really good. I'm pretty happy with this piece actually. And you can see with the minis to the way that it's scaled, and of course you can see the areas to where a little bit better light in there for you. There we go. Don't want to get too much though. There we go. That's better. To where you can actually see how well it actually turned out. So that's that. That's basic mini painting in a nutshell. I mean, primer coat in black. Like I said, I'm doing a natural building. I want all this natural shading, so I want to do a primer coat in black, and then just a few 3 different shades of gray paint that I use to make it look like weathered stone. Burnt umber for the base coat for the wood, and then of course the honey brown to make it look weathered, like old weathered wood. And yeah, turned out great. A little bit of flocking, a little bit of glue, nothing too really extravagant whatsoever, just to make it look decent. And this is, you know, right here is good for tabletop standard for me, and it's going to work out well with my RPGs and my mini games and other things such as that. So if you guys enjoyed the video, let me know. Drop me a comment if you like this content, you like terrain painting, terrain building, stuff like that, you want to see more, let me know. It'd be very appreciated. And it's just a one piece of the hobby that I really haven't done any videos on. I haven't really talked about it much. I mean, pretty much just stuck to RPG books and board games and RPG games, and this is a whole different side of the hobby that I really enjoy to do, but I just never really made a video with it until now. And I had a lot of fun. Had a lot of fun editing it, had a lot of fun doing it. And I have all the other terrain pieces in the background, and some of them I did an extra step with that,
and I'll include that at the end of the video so you can see what I mean. I had to add some more texture to one of the terrain pieces to really, well, give it more texture. I just wasn't happy with it, so I'll clip over to that, and until the next video, game on, my friends, and let me know. Alright, Artichoke Dip, signing off.
Okay, so the second part I'm going to do, as long as my nope, has not dried out. So I will wash out and keep old yogurt cups around for this. I know it's a little bright to see. Turn that off that way, as a matter of fact, until we need it back again. So I keep old yogurt cups around for this, and this stuff right here, Mod Podge, this stuff is a terrain builder's best friend. I'm gonna tell you, this stuff is amazing. I use it for a lot of stuff, but I want to add, as we can see right here, you can see just this is smooth, it's boring, there's no texture. Even if I was to paint that, there's no way I'm gonna be able to get the level of texture like this. We can see here, get that lighting just right where you can see it, compared to this. I mean, it's cool, you know, for minis, for having a miniature skirmish, being able to put them suckers up there, have a corridor, have whatever, but this is a boring finish. That's just a 3D printed blah. That's what I call it. So what I do to fix that is I'm going to add some Mod Podge, and actually I might want to add a little bit more to that. And once again, when you're done with the container, you can just throw it right out, so you don't have to worry about rinsing this stuff out when you're done with it. Now I'm going to add something else. That something else is going to be sand. And then there is going to be one final ingredient to all of this. Might want to add a little bit more there. Okay. And this is going to give me the texture I'm really looking for, and I really want to add to this model. I'm going to have to find a decent brush to apply this with. Bingo! This guy right here. I'm really sorry about bumping the camera. There's not a whole lot I can do with that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stir this stuff up into a really good consistency that I like. And I'm going to probably have to add a little bit more Mod Podge to it. Or maybe not. I might. I think that's pretty good. Okay. Last and final ingredient that we're going to need for this. Black paint. And this is just going to water it down, the paint, a lot more. It's going to give the consistency that I'm looking for. And it's going to seal, once this dries, it's going to seal all of that in. Now this, I'm actually not going to, so to speak, paint on there in a traditional way as we're thinking, like if I'm going to be doing dry brushing. This stuff I'm just going to splatter on there. And when the Mod Podge dries, it's going to leave the sand in place, and I'm going to actually have some texture to this now that's going to be very interesting, and it's going to be far more, I'm going to say, aesthetically pleasing, I guess we'll say, compared to what it is now. It's not going to have that ridiculous 3D printed texture to it. And I'm going to put a very liberal amount of this on there and really build it up. And I want to make it uneven and inconsistent. I want to do that because, let's face it, this is supposed to be a dungeon area. This is going to be a subterranean area that has been dug out, right? Underground in a fantasy medieval world. So they're not going to have very accurate cutting tooling like we would expect to see today in our modern times, right? It's going to be cruder. It's going to really leave a lot to be desired, I guess we should say. I'm going to do the same with the steps. And I want to smooth it out towards the center to give the appearance that's where the majority of the foot traffic that comes through, where it's going to be. And now I'm going to want to really start to focus this on these areas too. And what it's going to do is there's just going to be more sand. So when this actually dries, it's just going to have more of a sandy consistency there. Now, these areas are kind of boring too, and I want to add a little bit more texture to that as well. So I'm going to paint this on there as well, and it's going to make it give it more of a stone finish. It's going to fill in a lot of those 3D printed lines, and I'm not going to really have to do much because we've already put a primer coat down, so it's going to adhere pretty quickly. As you can see, it's already looking better. It's looking way better than what it was before. Now, all of this stuff's going to have to dry for anywhere from 12 to 24 hours before I can even do anything with it. And I'm going to do the same thing with this as I did with the first piece, and that's just going to be the dry brushing method. As you can see how simple that was, basic simple ingredients. And like I said, there's nothing I've done here that you really need a whole lot of artistic skill for. Nothing whatsoever. already looks better. Now the heavier, sandier stuff is going to fall to the bottom. Kinda expected that. So I'm going to put liberal amounts here in the corners. Work the way out. Okay. Now, one thing I really got to do with that is let it dry. This, I'm thinking about doing the same thing with it. I just really don't like the texture I have here, so I'm going to put some of this mixture on there as well. Careful not to get it on the headstones, but it's just going to really give it more of a better overall texture to it, and it's going to look better when I put paint on it. Now you may notice, yeah, it's black. It mixes with the primer coat, which is what I want it to do. But the other good thing is too, when I go to dry brush it, it's going to give that natural shadowing effect to it, which is what I'm after. But it's going to have them small pieces of sand in there. That's just going to add more texture. It's gonna look way more natural than it currently is. So I can move this around like so, and I can fill in some of these areas that look like where the 3D printer screwed up, and this will just fill all that in. Won't have to worry about it. It'll be gone. Alright, gotta let that one dry too.